Hello there everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lydia's Crafty Corner with me, Lydia, in my little crafty corner. So today, this is the card that we are going to be creating. Now this was actually inspired by the scene on my craft desk. So it was actually inspired by the actual paint palette itself. So this is the paint palette that I'm talking about. This is the 12 pan Essential watercolor from Altenew. And this is the one that we're going to be using. So I have two pieces of cardstock which I'm going to use for the bottom and the top of my paint palette, and they are 4 by 1 3/4. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a small corner rounder and I'm just going to snip off the corners so they are nice and round, so they look like the corners of the paint palette. I'm then going to take one of the small circles from the Halftone Circles nesting die, and these are in fact going to be our little paints. So I'm going to take another piece of watercolor cardstock and I'm going to cut this 10 times from my little watercolor cardstock. So in the paint palette there are 12, but I only had room for 10 on mine, so I'm not going to worry too much about that. I'm then going to take those little watercolor circles that we've already die cut and I'm just going to add these onto a palette. I'm just using my glue tape just to keep these in place. I'm then going to use the watercolor palette. So this is the Essential watercolor, and I've just added some water to the paints first to make them nice and juicy, and I'm then just going to add one of each color to the little circles. Now, like I said, I only have 10 of these, so I am going to have to miss out 2 of those beautiful colors, but I'm sure it's going to work out fine anyway. So I've used the pink, I've used one of the reds because there are 2 in here, then a yellow, just one of them because there's 2, so they're the ones that I have kind of got rid of out of my little paint palette. So the lightest yellow and also the lightest red, but it's still going to give us a rainbow effect. I couldn't get rid of any of the blues or greens because they are my favorite. So as you can see, I'm just going to keep working until I've added color to each of these little dots, and then once I've done that I'm going to leave those over to the side to dry. So that is the last of them. I'm just going to let them dry now. I'm then going to move on to the little card that I have on my card. And again, this is watercolor cardstock and it's 2 by 2 3/4. And I'm going to use this really cute stamp, which is the Mini Delight Bold Bloom. I thought this would work really well because it's such a small size, but it's also going to look like it's really huge on our little card that we have here. So I'm just going to ink that up using my Obsidian ink because it is watercolor friendly, and I'm just going to stamp that into place like I would on a normal size card, but this is just a mini one. There was also a sentiment in the stamp set, the Mini Delight Bold Bloom, so I'm just going to stamp that into place as well. So once I have that in place, I can then decide to color this in. So I am going to use the Essential watercolors again, and I'm just going to mix some of the pink, that really bright pink, with some of the warm sunshine color. So I'm just going to mix that on my little palette that we have to the side of the watercolor palette, and I'm just going to add this quickly to those little elements, and then I'm just going to drop some of that really bright pink into where I think it would be the darkest, but I'm not going to worry too much because this is tiny and it's going to look like it's really cute anyway. So I'm then going to add onto the top of my little palette, so these are the watercolors palette that I created before. I'm just going to add like I would on my palette, so it looks like it's the top of the palette when we put this together later on. So I've just added that on. I'm then going to mix a green, so I'm using some of the emerald and also some of that forest glades. I'm going to mix those on the palette, and then I can add those onto my little card here. So as you can see, I'm just doing it really quickly, just given the effect that we have watercolored it. And as before, because we're going to try and make our palette that we're making look like a palette, I am going to add some of these green colors onto the top part of our little watercolor palette here. So just those, just to make it look like we have mixed our colors there, which is really quite cute. So once I have done that and all of my little circles are now nice and dry, I'm then going to add these onto the bottom part of our palette. You can have a play around to see how this is going to work and where you want your colors to be, but I'm going to kind of go with how they are in the watercolor palette as it is. So I'm just going to have a play, see how much of a gap I need to leave. I've then added some foam tape to the back of my little watercolor dots, and I'm going to pop these into place. Now I do find it easier to add the end ones in first, so that's why I'm going with the ends, and then add the center ones in so I can get a really good kind of gap between them all, so all the gap is the same. And the more of the little dots that you put in place, the more alive this comes, and I really do love the rainbow effect on this. So once I have that done, I can then work out where I want my composition to be. So I have the bottom of the paint, I have the little paint lid with our little coloured marks on there that looks like that we've mixed, and our little card. So for these pieces, I am going to stick these down using some tape glue, but you could add foam tape if you wanted to. I just wanted these nice and flat onto my card. So I'm just going to pop those on. If any of the things do overhang, I would recommend that you cut your overhanging images off from behind. That's going to give you a really cleaner look because you can see exactly where you need to go with your scissors. So I've just trimmed those. I'm then going to add some foam tape onto the back of our little mini card that's going onto our card as well, and then pop that into place. As we have the sentiment on the little mini card, I didn't feel that we needed one, but a crafty sentiment may look cool on this as well. So here is the card complete. I really do hope that you like the card and that you've enjoyed the video. If you do create a card that was inspired by this, it would be great if you do share. So thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I really do hope that you have a great weekend. See you again soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, crafty friend, Lydia here. Just popping in to say that you can get your daily dose of crafting tips, techniques, and tutorials just like this by subscribing to the Altenew YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on that little bell up there and you will never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.